Stress that is caused by, sorry, this is stress that is caused by perceiving or seeing other people being stressed. So if your family member is stressing, your family member is going through that trauma, you would also pick up their emotions, their stresses, by actually being a part of their lives. Just being close to somebody who's experiencing difficulty can actually have a very serious impact on us. So it is characterized by emotional exhaustion. This is why I don't have any energy. I feel depleted all the time. Decreased empathy. This is where I can't actually empathize with other people. I'm snappy. I'm a little bit more irritable than I usually am, and a reduced ability to care for others. This is due to the prolonged stress exposure to these stressful situations. So this is how it looks. So it describes the physical, which is what our body goes through, spiritual, emotional, and psychological impacts of helping others. This can be from raising, supporting, managing their addiction, managing their lives, empowering and encouraging our loved ones. This often happens through experiences of stress and trauma. Having that I'm always with you. If you call me, I'll be there. The random calls at midnight to come assist, police calls, all of those difficult stresses and trauma that we can go through being related or family members of our addicts. This exhaustion is caused by being exposed to the suffering, trauma, and stress that our family members cause. So this can be the stress that they cause you, the stress that is happening or occurring in their lives, the changes that you see them going through, and even just the spiral. So every relapse, every, issue with the law, apologies, there's just the car passing. So this may be called secondary traumatic stress and can lead to burnout. So when we look at compassion fatigue, secondary traumatic stress, and burnout, they go hand in hand. They look quite similar, but it's quite progressive, these three terms. So how can it show itself, right? These are the symptoms that we want to look at. So if you can relate, just have a look there. So this would be a diminished ability or interest in caring for others or the self. Particularly, I think what we want to focus on is the self. As the family member, how are you not having the ability to look after the self, yourself, feeling a lot of empathy regarding your needs, your health care, your mental health. So another thing we see is the preoccupation with our family members, whether they are in the house, whether they are in recovery, whether they are in the streets, wherever they are, we are preoccupied with how they're doing. If they are recovering, if they're taking it seriously, if they've eaten, if they have enough clothes. So all of these questions and thoughts and worries that we have about our family members and being very, very invested in their issues or suffering. Mental and or physical exhaustion. So mental would look like not being able to concentrate, not really being able to be focused, seeing yourself slip in terms of memory, all of those issues. And then physical exhaustion is just, I need so much energy to do daily things. I'm so tired. I can sleep for 12 hours. I don't feel regenerated. And then anger and irritability, which would be a little bit of the psychological changes that we would see, a lot of resentment, a lot of bitterness that we might see, a lot of upset, and also kind of being fearful and depressed. So when we talk about anxiety or depression, we would talk not even in the diagnostic sense. We just say here, being anxious would be being fearful, being afraid of our loved one's health or future, fearing for our own health and future, seeing that we constantly live in a state of fear where we are worried or scared or fearing their retaliation or fearing if this disease is going to prolong. It would also look like a low energy, not being interested in your daily activities, needing a lot to just do daily, normal human things, right? And then we also see physical problems will also be sleep problems. So we always look at the very extremes. So would it be an increased need for sleep or insomnia? So are you constantly sleeping? Are you constantly feeling like I will yawn any moment now, 10 times in a row? Or I can't sleep. I'm in bed. I'm on TikTok the whole time. I'm constantly checking what the counselor has said. I feel I can't sleep. My body is restless. And then appetite changes as well. We're looking at the increased hunger where we're eating more than we usually do. We find ourselves snacking, Kit Kats here and there, sweets here and there. And then the opposite would be a low appetite where I don't feel like eating at all. I feel like I can't eat. I don't have it in me. If my colleague sense anything, Roxanne, Cheryl, if you want to add anything in terms of what kind of behaviors can we see?
Sorry, Innocentia. Sorry, this always happens.
Sorry about that.
I think I just want to expand on the first one. So, were you saying a diminished ability or interest in caring for others or the self? So, I think there's a big difference with that coming to a place of saying, I can't anymore. I have nothing left to give. Like my
Yeah.
vessel, my cup is just empty. I
Mm,
can't anymore. Versus, and that's what we're speaking about here. Versus, you know, putting down boundaries or bottom line. So there's a difference. This
yeah.
compassion fatigue that we're speaking about is just literally just having nothing left to give to yourself, to the person, the addict that
Mm,
you're worried
mm,
about, as well as other family members. Maybe it's just
Mm.
you empty, there's nothing left to give. So there's a big difference between that and then saying, you know what, I've had enough, so these are the
yeah.
boundaries, this is what I'm okay with, this is not what I'm okay with. So I think it's just
100%.
important to make that
Yeah, I
distinction.
totally agree.
Yeah. And something else, I think it's important we understand it's not planned. You don't know when this is coming
Mm,
and it changes. So you can go through all this emotional turmoil and crises
mm,
and get them into treatment and survive. And then down the line, something happens and there's just no more. That
Yeah.
barrel is
yeah.
empty. A-
Yeah.
And, is it from caring too much now? Is it from caring all along? I don't think that's really
Mm,
the relevance. It's just about that you got to this place where you gave of yourself everything and there's
yeah.
nothing left. And we didn't have a name for it. People would say, I'm full, I'm done, I'm exhausted,
Yeah.
fed up. But giving a name to it is clarity of, okay, I got here from caring too much for too long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. I definitely agree. I think a very good point to highlight definitely is that it's not a choice that we make to have or to go through compassion fatigue. And it is something that happens where we literally exhaust all of our internal resources. We have nothing that is left. It is not because we are setting a boundary or we're choosing not to care. It is I'm unable. There is no resources left in me. I can't give anymore. So thank you so much. Yeah, love those. So more of the symptoms in which we can see, right? So this is more in terms of what we would be seeing in terms of psychological behaviors. So this is where as a parent, as a family member, every time your phone rings at night, you just get a fright. You're like, what is going on? Am I going to get another 3 hours of looking after my child or my loved one? So being easily startled, having a high sense of fear and dread. When you see a message from Changes Rehab, you fear for the worst. When you get a phone call from Innocentia counselor or Roxanne counselor, you're like, something bad is happening, you know? So having that dread, that fear, this can also spread into your other kids who are not addicts, your family members who are not addicts, just worrying constantly about, are you safe? Are you okay? Are you okay? You know, that feeling of high sense of fear and dread. So hopelessness again, this is not something that we choose. We're not saying, I give up. I give up on this family member. It's just, I can't see the positive side. I can't see the upside. I can't see where we're going. I can't see this getting better. I'm hopeless. I feel negative. This is also where we start doubting ourselves. Am I a bad parent? Did I fail somewhere? Am I not doing enough? You know, hypervigilance also goes through with being easily startled or having a high sense of fear and dread, being on high alert and always expecting bad news. This can also be something called scrolling. So doom scrolling is where we go on the internet and we find all the bad news that is happening in the world. So just our thinking patterns just changing and really being negative, being unable to be optimistic and just having a very pessimistic outlook on everything, avoiding certain people, or places, or environments. This would be maybe family members, colleagues. I'm scared that they're going to ask me questions. They're going to ask where my child is. They're going to remind me of that story that they saw that one day when they did this. So this is avoiding people, places, and things, as we say in recovery, that remind us of our family members, use, or where we might have to explain something that is uncomfortable for us. Emotional numbness, again, we're feeling apathetic and numb. We can't experience joy or excitement. This is not a choice that we make. We find ourselves having no resources, no capacity. Let me know if my connection is stable. I'm just getting a message here, colleagues. Apologies. So emotional numbness, thank you. Feeling apathy, numbed, no joy, excitement. This is where you go to the park. It's been a great day. You got a promotion, but it's like, meh, that feeling of I can't connect with the good things in life. So taking more time off work, which leads to us being very unproductive at work. We lack concentration. This can also be in other areas of life. So we kind of zone out from the daily things that we do, our other roles as mothers, sisters, colleagues, managers, all of that. We start to fall off on our other duties and roles that we have. Feeling disconnected, not having a life, feeling like you are this island that is just you and the world is gone. All you think about, worry about, and ponder upon is your loved one and their issues and how you can help them, if you can help them. And this is also neglecting your social needs in the process because you've invested so much energy on doing the best for your loved one, right?
Thank you, Innocentia. Before we move on, one that I often see, point number 4, the avoiding certain people or environments, family members, etc. So I think, again, we have nothing left to give. The situation is taking everything out of us, and we literally just feel like, we're being invited to a family dinner, and we just say to ourselves or to our partner or another loved one, like, I can't see myself going there and having to answer questions or having to pretend that everything's okay. So and because of that, we tend to start avoiding those situations. We tend to isolate ourselves more and more. And I think that ties quite nicely with that last one about feeling disconnected, because I think in a lot of ways we become disconnected because we don't feel up to many things, and definitely not facing people and having to either put on a mask or to answer questions.
100%.
So I think that for me, that's one that I see quite often.
Yeah, I think you highlighted something so important, which is it can be such a very intricate, vicious cycle of I'm avoiding my family because I'm tired, but I'm tired because I'm avoiding my family, and it just goes on and on and on and on. So yeah, beautiful, well spotted. If we could move on to the next one. Okay, so what are the key components? So we're looking at emotional exhaustion, a decreased empathy, and a reduced ability to care, right? So in terms of emotional exhaustion, we tend to feel drained. This is universally. I'm not there. I don't care. I don't feel it. I'm numb. So feeling depleted and emotionally spent. Good things happen. I don't flinch. Bad things happen. I don't flinch. We're just numb. Needing more energy, for example, to go through normal daily events. I need to go to work, so it takes me much more. I need to do a presentation, so I need to drink all of the coffee in the world and all of the Red Bull in the world, And then in terms of decreased empathy, we tend to really, really not have anything else to give in terms of caring for other people, looking after ourselves, right? Ability to feel compassion. Like I said, bad things happen, we don't flinch. Good things happen, we don't flinch. That sense of I really feel numb. There's like a beep, there's nothing else there. So being snappy with your other kids and or with family members. So you're noticing that you're a little bit more harsher on the little ones or on your partner in your marriage. So there's no more compassion that is left. Reduced ability to care, right? We found ourselves having no motivation or energy. So we would also see this in other things that used to make you happy, things that used to make you elated. They don't really make you feel that good anymore. It either is the vicious circle that we were talking about of I don't have the energy to do it, or it is even when I do try it, it still doesn't really give me that sense of whew, it can be your yoga, it can be running, it can be doing a little bit of crocheting, whatever it is that used to elate you doesn't really do that. You tend to be more cynical, you are detached and unavailable to your family members, children, partners, work, hobbies, everything starts to become affected. Yeah?
Mm. Yeah, I like that, because I agree with you 100% that ability to care, it's like tentacles that go into so many different areas of our life. So it's not just caring about the person, again, the addict, but also not caring about ourselves, not caring kind of what happens. Sometimes we stop caring about the way we look, the way we present ourselves. We stop caring about, like you said, hobbies, interests, things that used to excite us. It's just, again, I keep seeing like this empty cup, like there's nothing. I cannot be
Yeah.
happy about something. I cannot be excited about something. I cannot worry anymore. It's just, it's
Yeah.
done. All of those things are just done. So that care goes to so many different areas of our life.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree. I also like the tentacle explanation. That's a very beautiful visual way to put it. Yeah, so what would cause this, right? So definitely chronic stress, the stress of managing, working, solving, helping, facilitating rehab after rehab, that chronic stress. It's not working. I don't know what to do. Trauma exposure, run-ins with the law, seeing our family member hurting as well, seeing them deteriorating is a traumatic, exposure or traumatic event. Seeing them using these substances, getting into trouble, hurting themselves, even hurting others, hurting us sometimes as family members. It's quite traumatic. Another thing, which is our field, is our boundaries. So lack of boundaries. Your family member, your loved one can call you any time of the day. Your loved one is in rehab, but they're calling you and sending you 7 letters with 14 different items that are very hyper specific and very expensive. So not having the boundaries to say, there is a line. They're asking for tuck shop every week and it is expensive. Emotional boundaries, which is where they would manipulate, berate, demean, all of those boundaries that are just not there. So our boundaries just being disrespected, whether they're in the facility or outside as well, where they invade our privacy, they steal from us, they berate us. Our time is theirs. 24 hours you're worrying about your loved one, you're facilitating and taking care of your loved one. So another thing where lack of boundaries also coincides is emotional over involvement, right? There is involvement, we are involved. This is our loved one, this is our family. But where we become over involved, where we lack boundaries, is where we start to compromise ourselves, we start to self-neglect, we start to self-sabotage. This was not in the budget, but because you asked so nicely, I'm going to give it to you. You know, um, we start to condone things that we know are not really good or healthy because we want to appease, we want to soften. So where we are over involved, we will notice things like self-compassion, self-neglect diminishing, not really having boundaries, seeing that thing of I know this is not right, but I'm going to do it anyway because if I don't, I might get in trouble, right? Social isolation, we spoke about that. I don't have friends. I can't have friends. They're going to ask me questions. Can't go to the family gathering. I'm too spent. I'm too tired. We spent 4 days looking for you. I'm so tired. I can't even have friends. You know, I don't have friends. Another way where social isolation ties in with our lack of boundaries is where we start saying things like, I don't need friends. My child is my friend, right? This is a very clear symptom of we don't have boundaries. So our life cannot be our child or our family member or our sick loved ones, right? And then poor self-care. This ties in with everything. You do not look after yourself, the things that you enjoy, your hobbies, your interests, you're not really taking part of, you're not really living life. You know, there's no life, there's no happiness. All we're doing is chronic stress. We're worried all the time. We're feeling tired. We're spent. So all of these tying in together with just the lifestyle of having an addict in the family can really, really lead to compassion fatigue. Colleagues, have I missed anything?
No, I agree with you again 100%. It's just you spoke earlier about this vicious cycle that we sometimes get trapped in. And I think number 3, the lack of boundaries is exactly one of those. So the lack of boundaries is something that causes this compassion fatigue. But at the same time, when we are so spent, it's so much harder to put up those boundaries, right? So
Yeah.
if somebody pushes those boundaries and asks for something, we're just like, oh, I don't have the energy to fight. So yeah, whatever, just,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
then again, our boundaries completely are not there. So again, it's just that vicious cycle, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's
100%.
interesting that we both picked up on the same thing, Roxanne, because what was coming up for me is that's when the addicted person pounces. They really put the nails in when we are feeling that, when we know in our head what the boundaries are, but we don't have the energy to affect them. And that's where they get away with a lot. They break us down even more.
Yeah.
And often families will say to us, I just couldn't say no anymore. I couldn't. My head was saying no, and my heart was saying, I don't
We've
care.
lost Cheryl. Cheryl?
Can you not hear me?
I can hear you.
There we
Okay. How much did you hear? Did I freeze somewhere?
No, I heard you clearly,
Okay,
Roxanne.
cool.
It was just on my side.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Thanks, ladies.
Yeah, so very interesting, and that's exactly what I was thinking, Cheryl, is you know, we would hope that our loved ones wouldn't take advantage of that, but often they do.
It's exact opposite. They
Yeah,
capitalize.
Exactly that. Yeah. And
100%.
we see it so often. Even being in treatment, knowing that it's costing quite a lot, not only financially, but emotionally, etc. And then still pushing those boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
think
I
it's also,
think,
yeah.
sorry, Innocentia, the inability for them to care. Because we'll say to our clients, you know what, this is costing money. Your family's a little bit tight. The economy's tight. Don't order proper brand cigarettes, 3, slow down. They look at us like, what? Why? Look at what I'm doing for them. I'm here. So they should be proud of me, or they should be happy I'm here and they must pay. And it's the opposite. We can't teach compassion. That takes time and long time in sobriety. So often families use the time they're going to rehab to go on a vacation, an emotional vacation. And that's why whenever I see families on this group, I get really happy, because I think at least you're not shutting off and chilling to gather your strength while your loved one's in treatment. You're taking this opportunity to also get support for yourself, information for yourself, hopefully do all those things that you don't get to do when they're in active addiction, because those things all compound into that complete breakdown, fatigue, exhaustion. How often, ladies, do we hear, maybe every intake, oh, so-and-so's mom's been booked into a clinic, so-and-so's dad has been booked into a clinic. They couldn't take the stress, they've been booked into psychiatric hospital. It happens so often.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I,
100%.
and I think it's often because, you know, the loved ones don't prioritize themselves, and there's always I'll attend to myself later. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
when my loved one is better, when my loved one comes out of treatment, when this happened, when that happens, we constantly putting off that self-care. Um, and before we know it, we exactly what Innocentia is speaking about today, you know, this compassion fatigue that leads to burnout. Um,
100%.
there's that beautiful analogy about, you know, when we go on a flight, the flight attendants, when they give us all the safety things, the one of the most important things that they tell us, if the masks do drop, first put your own oxygen mask on before you
Mm-hmm.
help anyone else, because if you're not okay, you're not going to be able to help anyone else.
Yeah.
So if we
So
don't
true.
take care of ourselves and we don't fill this cup of ours, this vessel of ours, we're not going to be able to put down boundaries, which means we're going to not be helpful in any way
Yeah.
or healthy to our loved
Correct.
ones. You know, we're going to isolate ourselves. All of these things we're going to add to the stress, etc., etc. So just that oxygen
Mm.
mask, you know,
Mm.
always remember, put on your own oxygen mask first. Make sure that you're healthy, that you're clear, that you're strong. Don't keep putting that off. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to help yourself, and you're definitely not going to be able to help your loved one that's in addiction or in treatment, or other people that you care
Yeah.
about.
100%. I like the tying in with self-care, because that is one of the things that start to fall away, or one of the consequences of, being fatigued is, letting go of self-care. But I think a very major thing is the guilt that may come with saying, I'm looking after myself while my family member is in
Correct.
rehab. I think that's a very important thing to say. You are your own person. The oxygen mask. You're so good at these analogies, Roxanne, by the way. Yeah. I think the oxygen mask analogy is such a good one, because if your self-care is poor, what are you teaching your loved one? What are you going to say? What are you going to impart? So it's not an act of selfishness to say, I'm not dealing with this because I'm not in the place. I need to look after myself. I need to fill my cup. If my cup is not full, I can't help you. Even if I
Sure.
help you, it won't be inadequate or healthy. So I think looking at it like that, just simply, you need the oxygen first before you can help
Yeah.
somebody else, and the oxygen can look just as simple as self-care or boundaries. Love that analogy as well.
Mm.
So what can untreated compassion fatigue do? So we spoke about burnout earlier a little bit, when we said they tie in together quite closely. So number one would be burnout. So this is kind of like compassion fatigue. I'd like to say it's like compassion fatigue's uncle. This is like the big dog that comes in. So it's an ongoing state of mental, physical, and emotional depletion. This is where there's nothing. It's beyond fatigue. It's beyond just being compassionate and having the resources. This is everything is breaking down. The symptoms are more severe. The symptoms are the same, but in a more severe way, and they are more lasting, right? We also see strained relationship. We spoke a lot about isolating. We said we isolate because we don't have the energy, or we isolate because I don't want anybody to ask me questions that I don't want to deal with right now. But relationship breakdown. This is with the people who know us, the people who love us, the people who are around us as well. This can be with colleagues, this can be with partners. So, irritability, being more isolated, withdrawing from them, having no energy. So, having nothing left for those other relationships that we have, as a mom. So, it would be with your other kids, with your husband, as a dad, it would be with your other, same thing, with your sisters, your uncles, your cousins. So, being completely isolated and being this island of a person where there's just nobody to reach out to. Depleted mental, physical, and psychological health. Um, all aspects of our health become affected by stuff like compassion fatigue and burnout. We spoke about the worries and anxieties and depressions that might happen. So we would look at the physical stuff, which is the sleep issues, getting constant headaches, having stomach issues, experiencing high blood pressure, sugar issues. So having these ups and downs with our health that indicate stress, that indicate there is a breakdown, you know, Psychological health, like I said, anxiety, hypervigilant, feeling depressive, no energy. So all of these things can come together and just make us actually feel worse, push us closer to that phase of burnout from compassion fatigue. And then an emergence of unhealthy family roles. Now, this is a very important one that I really want all of us to think about, because like we said, if you're not putting on the mask on yourself, you are lacking the oxygen to really do or be the best parent, family member that you can, or the best person that you can, you are not showing up in the best way possible. Now, in the addict family, there are family roles that can emerge that can be caused by this lack of boundaries. So we find ourselves rescuing. So this is, I'm protecting my family member from the consequences that will come. If the rehab sounds a little bit harsh, I take them out of the rehab and I put them home. If consequences are happening, I shield them. I give them money. I'd rather have you use in my house. We tend to rescue, shield our family member, rescue them from their consequences, protect them from the severity of their substance use. This can be behavioral. Enabling. So this is where we find ourselves justifying the use. Our addict family members will always justify their use. I'm stressed, I'm tired, I need it. So this is where we facilitate their use. We create either an environment that allows them to use, where we condone it, like we give them the money or we tell them they can use at these times. We give them conditions that make it okay to use. We depend on them using so that they are close to us. Whatever it can be, where we are finding ourselves enabling the behavior, justifying and condoning the behavior. That can be the use or the behaviors that come with the use. And then taking on victim roles. This is where in situations like in a family conjoined, we are the victim. Our family member is the victim. We didn't do this. This is happening to us. We didn't choose addiction. Addiction chose us as a family. So having this demeanor or perception of ourselves where we have no blame, it is not our responsibility, nor it is our fault that this affliction is occurring in our family. And then I think I mentioned rescuing twice, but yeah, these are the patterns that can emerge when we are actually lacking that sense of inner strength or inner capacity to set healthy boundaries. Roxanne, in terms of these family roles, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so I think we often do say that addiction is a family disease. So one person might be the one using, but everyone is impacted by it one way or another. I'm going to use an analogy again, Innocentia, but I often
Love
see
it.
it as a bit of a scale, so there's a person that's using and it tips the scales. And we do certain things to try and get that balance back. But those roles that we adapt and those things that we do aren't always healthy. In fact, most of the time they're very unhealthy. And we try and justify it. A way that I try and justify or define justification is it's a seemingly plausible excuse.
Mm,
So we try and, well, if my loved one has incurred a lot of debt, I need to help them. I need to rescue. I need to enable, because otherwise, how are they going to get a loan one day? They're going to have a bad credit record. So there's a part of it that seems, okay, yeah, it makes sense. We can try and justify it like that. But the reality is it's not a good thing. It's not a healthy thing. It's not helping
yeah.
them. It's really actually not in their best interest, even though we try and convince ourselves that it is. So again, it's just trying to restore that
Mm,
scale.
mm.
That, but it's often, more often than not, it's not really healthy behavior.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree with that. I do agree with these behaviors being a way that we can patch the holes and make it seem like it's okay. Because I think at the end of the day, we all want to cope and feel okay with what is happening, even when it is not okay, even when it is not good. It doesn't feel good. It's not comfortable. So we tend to patch up the holes with rescuing or enabling. So explaining away the behavior so that it sits a little bit softer or more comfortable with us. I think that's why step one is so important, right? we all need to come to a place where we understand that it is a disease. We are all powerless. We cannot manage it. The solution is total abstinence. So I think even as family members, abstain from rescuing and enabling and playing the victim, and find a way where you can just sit with the truth and the reality of, yeah, this is depleting me. I'm not enjoying this. I'm not having a good time. And just understanding that and figuring out, like with sessions like this, how is this impacting me or affecting me? How can I get help? Right? Yeah.
I just want to add one thing. We often speak about the 3 C's when it comes to families and addiction. So we try and teach families, whether it's partners or parents or whatever, that you didn't cause this disease. You can't cure it. You can't control it. And then, we often try and bring in the fourth one about, but how did you perhaps contribute to it?
Mm.
And
Mm.
when we say that, we do refer to like the rescuing behavior, the enabling behavior, etc.
Yeah.
The way that I like to define enabling is it's doing something for our loved ones that they're quite capable of doing for themselves. So, what are we doing in what way are we trying to take away their consequences? And should we really be doing that? So by doing that, again, justifying what we're doing, is that maybe not contributing to the problem as
Yeah.
opposed to helping?
100%. 100%. I think also acknowledging that it really will not take anything away from us, because I think the guilt always comes from, as a family member, if I let the consequence happen in its full extent, am I a bad parent? Am I a bad family member? Do I not care? Will they hate me one day? So, being in that sense where we understand that life is life, the consequences are consequences. We need to love our family members enough and love ourselves enough to not think that we can shield, protect them from their own behaviors. Love ourselves enough to say, let go and let God, let it happen how it's supposed to happen without needing to really have a firm hold of it. So yeah, definitely. Thank you.
And I'm sure Cheryl and Innocentia can jump in here too, but to a certain extent, I do think and we often say that to the patients, that that's part of the consequence. Is he able to pack a bag at the age of 40? 100%
Yes.
he is. So should it be your responsibility to pack the bag?
No.
I don't believe it is. So, is there something terrible going to happen to him if he needs to wash the little bit of clothes that he has for a period of time? I really don't think so. And I know for some it might seem like a really harsh stance, but if we keep rescuing, when's he going to learn to pack his own bag? Because he's always going to expect that somebody's going to be there to pack the bag and to bring whatever he needs and to run after him. So it's not a case of not caring, but it's I do believe that if we continue to do those things that they're capable of doing for themselves, they're always going to expect that. Cheryl, I don't know what your opinion is and what your feeling is.
You put it really nicely. I think I'm a little bit cheekier. My reasoning is not your circus, not your monkeys. We're not talking about a healthy interactive relationship. We're talking about probably a codependent and slightly enabling relationship, even if it's life partners.
So, you can't be expected to be there all the time, any time of the day. And I think sometimes that's often what we see as well. So when our loved ones phone us, we always need to be there. We always need to be available. And I think it also has to do with that hypervigilance, like, but maybe they're not okay. Maybe they really need me. Maybe there's really something wrong. And then often, when we do answer the phone, there's not really much conversation. There's never or very seldom, like, how are you and how's things with you? It's literally just a, I can't, I'm struggling so badly. My boss was such a bleep, bleep, bleep today, and I'm just tired, and, you know, my car's broken down, and it's just dumping all of this stuff onto you. And now you sitting with this and like, what am I supposed to do? And then
And a
again,
bit of a Maya thoughts.
and then feeling, you know, okay, I need to jump in now. I need to rescue. And when that happens, we often need to take a break and go, whoa.
Would it be okay to just send a bag of essentials still dirty? In our experience, peers on the farm are quick to call each other out on their behaviors. I think anything's okay. We've had clients walk in their underwear with nothing. No shoes, no clothes, nothing. And we just give them things out of lost and found, mismatched, tight, loose. Humility in recovery is very important. And if they're throwing their toys out the cot, screaming, shouting, then we've just got a long, 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 long way to go. So again, please talk to the counselors. I would be very happy if you dropped off nothing for 2 days. We will not let them walk around naked.
No. And if
Okay,
it's
thanks,
cold, we'll make
Innocentia.
sure they have something warm.
Sharing, everyone. I think it is important, and that's why the very, very first thing is self-care. We can do nothing if we are empty, if our cup is empty, if we are depleted. So self-care is not just that little coffee that you get yourself, right? Self-care is emotional self-care, which is therapy, these groups, talking to your family, getting your own support, and being honest. That's also emotional self-care. Being honest when you are enabling, when you are rescuing, just knowing what your part is, that what is my part? What am I contributing to this disease? Physical self-care, which is medical treatment, gym, yoga, nature, just being balanced in terms of our physical, and then psychological, which is therapy, which is this just letting your mind rest, right? And seeking medical health care, psychiatrist, psychology, counseling, when you really are seeing that you are struggling. But all of those facets, spiritual self-care, professional self-care, looking at yourself as a holistic being, not just as a family member to a sick person or a person with an addiction. You are more than that, and tapping into all of that. Setting boundaries. We spoke about why boundaries are important. It is again that little, I'm not going to give you what you want when you want it. What do I want? You know, what is good for me right now? What works for me right now? Setting those healthy boundaries and sticking to them. Addicts thrive over chaos or from chaos. So when they see a little ripple in the water, they will pounce. So being consistent is important. And being consistent means being true to yourself. Like Nonhlanhla was saying, I'm doing it because I want it. It is not because I'm expecting some changed behavior. Setting those boundaries. Emotional regulation is also what we teach our clients, but it is definitely important for everyone. Having that ability to calm, center, and manage your emotions and say, is this me or is this my family member? Is this something that I'm going through or is it being provoked by what they're doing? Am I trying to people please? Am I trying to take away their consequences? And being real and honest with ourselves. Seeking support, you're already doing it by being in this session. So you've done at least one thing. So being in the Al-Anon, we're going to talk about that now, but doing these types of things. But seeking support can just be having a friend that you talk to about, not isolating yourself, being honest with what's going on, not saying I don't have friends, my child is going through this, but really reaching out and grabbing life, living, right? Social support networks, building resilience in terms of your strengths, right? Building resilience, self-care, emotional regulation, same type of vibe of, is your mental and physical and psychological health healthy? Is it on par? Are you not in a place where you are losing your capacity? So building that inner strength to go on. You know, you are also walking a journey of recovery yourself. So not giving up and defaulting into the usual unhealthy behaviors that we used to. Getting education, you're also doing that. So learning, reading up, understanding things like gaslighting, lack of empathy, the 12 steps. So getting seeking all of the education that you can from all of the resources, the internet, your counselor, and these sessions, and then seeking professional help. So this is also tying in with support. Al-Anon families that and non where we sit with families and we discuss what we go through, and we get to learn how to cope. So finding that support and then setting realistic expectations, right? It kind of covers everything, but knowing where your limits lie, where your family members' limits lie, not thinking that putting them in a rehab is a magic wand to their ailment or their illness, but saying what is realistic and being honest with yourself and saying, do you know what? If they've been in rehab for a month, are they really going to get better? What can I expect? And if you really have fears and worries and doubts, be honest with yourself, setting realistic expectations is also not saying when you come up, we're gonna get that car and that house and that vacation, and expecting that will somehow heal what has gone on. So being very realistic, staying in the present moment, understanding that this is a lifelong thing. We always say that we are they are garden variety addicts. So not saying my child is special, 1 month in rehab and we're good, but being realistic and saying we need to work on this daily. This also prevents us from being manipulated, I'm being realistic. I don't think you're ready to come out. I'm being realistic. I don't think you need a new car, all of those types of boundaries that we need to set. Yeah.
Thank you, Innocentia. I think that was awesome. I think we've gone over time already. So instead of allowing time for questions and answers now, I think perhaps, Cheryl, just tell me if you're in agreement, but perhaps we can end it. And if anyone has any questions, then you're welcome to stay afterwards. And then Cheryl and Innocentia and I will still be available to answer any questions that there might be.
Okay, I think if we could maybe just answer the one very quickly.
Sure.
In the case where rescuing is a norm default with a family, excuse me, is a family member transitioning out of rehab who's never had to be accountable or responsible for their recovery, not more prone to relapse, where they were used to members controlling or planning their entire life from an early age before use. So I think just briefly, if your clinical team are asking you to put your loved one in extended treatment with us or another facility, don't falter, listen. Yes, it takes up to 12 months for them to learn new patterns of behavior, new pathways to be created in coping. 3 weeks in rehab is just crisis management.